So welcome back to another Impact Sessions podcast with me, Nick Bramley. I've got a fascinating guest this week. I've got a guy called Matthew Ord, and he works for LV Shipping and Transport, and his job title is Company Ambassador. So we've called this week's podcast Company Ambassador Explain. So no pressure, Matthew, but welcome to the Impact Sessions podcast.
Thanks, Nick. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. We've started looking at doing some work together and that kind of thing. And I came across sort of you in the role and I thought that's worth exploring. It's quite an interesting job title. You don't see it very often. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to explore the role. We're going to talk about fast moving global shipping and transport. We're going to talk about, the impact of, well, we have to use it, don't we? The COVID and the Brexit words and things that you probably get sick of hearing about. But, I'd be interested to look at your take on that. And also, as I say, what the role involves. So why don't we start with Company Ambassador? Tell us about that. Where did that come from? What does it involve? And what reaction do you get from people when you introduce yourself as that, as a lad from Middlesbrough?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? The title came from our chairman, Chris Lewin. So my background is I worked for the Chamber of Commerce for about 5 years, dealing with the region's importers and exporters, generally exporters. So I got to know all the businesses making things, designing things, and sending them overseas. Very much a physical job, so they had to physically be sending something as opposed to a service, you might say. And I remember when the job offer came through the door, and my partner Catherine, she opened it, and she started sort of sneering. I was like, "What's so funny? Is it that poor a wage?" And she went, "No, the title's amazing. They called you a company ambassador." You see a bit more of it now, and it's probably a play on certain other roles that I've done in the past, where I've always been a conduit between businesses. And my philosophy has always been don't invite anyone else into one of your businesses or a business that you know unless you've worked with them and you trust them. And I've grown a bit of a reputation for introducing people and being fairly well respected in that area. And having known all the importers and exporters, it was a little bit of a no-brainer for LV, I would hope, in terms of what they do and their activities and who I knew and what I could bring to the I wouldn't call it a party just yet, but to bring to the table.
Well, I guess that is the definition of an ambassadorial role, isn't it? To be fair, the Chamber of Commerce in York used to have an ambassador role, like a voluntarily thing, and it was a number of years ago, and they didn't resurrect it for some reason. But it was anyone who travelled widely who was proud of living in York, and I've lived in York for 30 years. I think it's a fabulous city, and I used to travel, and still do, but obviously not at the moment, for business, and I used to run sessions, and I was always proud of being, associated with the city of York. So they made me an ambassador for the city of York, and I had it on my footer of my email, and just like pretension to it. And one of my clients, if she's listening to this podcast, will just roll her eyes and go, "Yeah, we get it. You used to be an ambassador for the city of York." But it is about having pride, isn't it, in what you're representing and that kind of thing. Yeah. It's not about Ferrero Rocher, is it, at the ambassador's residence? So.
It's funny you should mention it, Nick. Sometimes when I go into a meeting and I give the Ferrero Rocher a little pack of 3, and if they're of a certain age, they'll go, "Very clever."
Very clever.
And if they don't, they'll just say, "Thanks for the chocolates." So yeah, I mean, it is good. I mean, the job title itself can often open doors, and that might seem a little bit pretentious, like you say, but actually, and I'm sure we'll touch it in my history. I've always been involved in business development or director level roles or some sort of sales type capacity.
Yeah.
And I think, as I mentioned earlier, you're seeing a few businesses steer away from that type of name now. It doesn't pull the wool over everyone's eyes. Don't get me wrong, and you still got to work hard, but it's certainly an opportunity to go, "Oh, who's this guy?" And it's intriguing, isn't it?
Well, I think part of the thing is intrigue, and I think it's got a bit of gravitas to it as well, hasn't it? Yeah. Someone's given it some thought. I've seen people who work in creative industries call themselves the big cheese and the head honcho and all that kind of thing. But I really do like company ambassador. I think LV Shipping and Transport have got it right in terms of the skill set you bring to the table. So how long have you been there, Matthew, in that role?
It'll be 4 years shortly. I think in the next 2 or 3 months. I think May or June I started 4 years ago. And you're right, it does have a little bit of gravitas to it. It is something I'm really proud of. it's a role that really, really suits me. And I think everyone that meets me, looks at my career, that knows me personally, goes, yeah, that's really what you're good at.
Yeah.
You know, being that person between businesses and helping them out and supporting them. But on the point about being proud, I grew up in Middlesbrough, as we mentioned off air. And I always said being from Middlesbrough was a bit like having an ugly sister. I'm allowed to say bad things about it, but you're not.
Yeah, I'm from
Stockton.
on Tees, north of the river, and a Class T side as my home, and I lived there for a long time before I moved to York. And we're allowed. You know, when you come over the flyover and you see the smog, we're very proud of that. But we don't like 100%. People. We don't like people having a go at it, do we?
No, not at all.
Okay, so on a day-to-day basis, then, what are the specific duties of the role? In addition to being a guest on my absolutely cracking podcast, obviously, what are the things do you do on a day-to-day basis that people would recognise? Because it's not a completely separate role from other things. People recognise elements of what does it involve then, Matthew?
I suppose apart from being on these amazing podcasts, Nick, yeah, you're right. It is to be the eyes and ears of the business. Commercially, I'm fairly astute and sensitive, so where there's opportunities that we as a business can lay one of our sector-specific sort of roles on, we would do that. So looking at our transport department, looking at our warehousing department, looking at our global footprint, looking at our 12 offices in the UK. I feel like I'm talking about everything we do here, but genuinely, because people in our office, they have a role to do. So they would be UK transport, or they would be worldwide shipping on sea or air freight. They don't always look at every opportunity that arises from a conversation with a client. And being at the Chamber of Commerce and helping people with what I always said was the very, very unglamorous side of exporting. I wasn't traveling the world with these customers. I wasn't selling products overseas and doing amazing exhibitions in glamorous locations. I was helping them with the basics of exporting. So getting your commodity codes right, your Incoterms, your documentation, everything you need in order to ship them goods overseas. And we've seen a huge collision over the last 2 or 3 months with Brexit into how that is very, very important now, because we're now not part of that one big happy family. We're all individual countries, and we're trading with, I get the maths wrong all the time, is it 27 individual countries over there now?
Yeah.
And even I don't know. And this is an example of how quickly this sector changes. And this is a massive challenge for our sector. Absolutely ginormous. 100 years we've been going, Nick. We've seen wars, we've seen pandemics, we're still seeing COVID. This is probably one of the biggest challenges we've had in terms of how it's played out.
Well, we'll address a little bit of that shortly.
Okay, great.
I guess it's about, like you say, you're a bigger picture guy than, aren't you? Other people have got the day jobs, other people have got the operational stuff to do with, other people have got their function. You're a bigger picture guy, I guess, reporting to the board and just looking at what's next and ideas and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is, and it's nice to have all that sort of level of interaction with such a big business. And we were quite fortunate that our chairman was our MD up until a couple of years back, and he's now our chairman of the group, and he's based in Middlesbrough, which is fantastic to have him here. But yeah, I always call myself that 7-year-old child. Why, what for? And I ask a lot of questions. So what do you do with this part of your business, and how do we involve ourselves with them? Who can I speak to in this area? Whereas other people, it could be, especially at the moment, Nick, a lot of it's phone-based and web-based, so you don't get to go in the business and have a good nosy around. I quite enjoy it, and I miss that bit. That's the bit I really miss.
Well, you can't see stuff if you're on a Zoom call that you can see while walking around a warehouse, can't you? Saying, what's happening with that over there, and how did that get from there to there, and what's your problems, and that kind of stuff. But that'll come back though, won't it, Matthew, hopefully?
100%. And I think Chinese New Year will be big. It'll be a big turning point in the world. And people ask, well, what does that have to do with anything? China control a lot of that. The containers that are around the world, if they're all in China, the prices go up. The demand for PPE, the price goes up. So yeah, Chinese New Year, and then probably you're looking at mid to end of the year, if I'm honest, before I think we really see and feel a difference. There will be a difference, but whether we'll see it or feel it till that point remains to be seen.
I'm personally, I do a lot of work around sort of sales development, and I work with organisations on the sales strategy. I work with sales professionals, etc. I'm not convinced we're going to go back to what you would call the old normality, 50,000 miles a year driving up and down the M1 and the motorway networks. I think there's going to be an element of this hybrid type stuff. I think there's going to be an element of, high quality face-to-face meetings, but they'll be done after you've built the relationships on Zoom and all the things that go with that. So it'd be an interesting time, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think that'll happen. The hand sanitisation will stay. I think we'll be socially distanced where we can. And I think you're talking 3, 4, maybe even 5 years before we see anything that is what looks like normal. And I don't refer to that in a business capacity, just in a human interaction kind of capacity. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves.
Has the handshake been surpassed by the elbow bump?
I'm not cool enough, Nick. I can't. I sort of say to people, look, I'm just going to say hi because I'm not cool enough to.
You can't. Yeah. Well, if you're not, mate, I'm not. So that brings me on to a little observation or question. So, your UK sales director and your group commercial manager were very quick to nominate me when I invited LV Shipping and Transport on as guests, and I know them both more than I know you. They claim they both have a face for radio and not necessarily YouTube. So, how often do you roll that as a presentable face of LV Shipping and Transport then?
Quite often, actually. Not because of my face, and not because of my knowledge is superior to them. I mean, Kevin is a really handsome chap. He's doing himself a disservice there. Yeah. Jonathan, not so much. You won't mind me saying that. I've known him a few years, and we like to take the mick out of each other. But yeah, it is the case, and that's my job title. That's what I do, Nick. And if something needs to happen, someone needs a presentation, a company wants to see us, and there's nobody local. That's the whole point of the role.
Yeah.
To go out and be fairly well versed and not an expert in every area, but to be able to cover our business in enough glory that we have an opportunity to secure commercial work from them. That's business. That's how it's done.
Excellent. Well, that comes from your background. I'm going to explore that in a second. But I was slightly concerned that two lads from the Northeast might need interpreters on our webinar and podcast for our listeners. But would have been even worse with Kevin, I guess, from Liverpool. Would have really struggled with that. So that's okay. Your LinkedIn profile is really interesting. You've always been involved in, as you mentioned, account management, business development, relationship building. So the role that you've got now, is it a rename for that, or is it is it a natural thing that others should explore? Do you think there's a real value add in the name and what the role looks like for the businesses? Because it still is quite rare, isn't it?
I think yes, on all fronts there, Nick. Yes, it's a hybrid. Yes, it's a move away from let's call himself a salesperson because the door might not open. But also, yes, definitely businesses should explore it. We're seeing more of it. Just yesterday, a good friend of mine, Kevin Ness at Wilton, he's been a business development ambassador for a couple of years now after I started at LV, just to get my point in that I was there before him. And he changed yesterday to a slightly different title to cover the group. And that is reflective of his job. And I think this is reflective of my job. I'd hate to see every salesperson start calling himself an ambassador because so sometimes we do have a challenge with salespeople in the region, and we do have a challenge with people that are a little bit old-fashioned in their ways, that are losing that kind of edge. And I'm sure, it's great that we've got you coming to our facility at some point, or whether it's on Zoom, to look at our sales, whatever you want to call it, Nick. I suppose the whole remit, isn't it? It's more than just sales.
It's really your sales function and your structure. And, there's a lot of people out there do what they've always done, but you're going to get different results now because the mechanisms are not there. But I'm looking forward to that, to be fair. I did some research in terms of the language on your LinkedIn. I particularly like this. This is what it says about you, and it's what you said.
I'm worried,
no, you've written it. So someone's written it anyway.
Oh, okay.
It's not Wikipedia, so it should be okay. It says building a network of business contacts that I've been able to call upon has been something I've built up over many years. The ability to strengthen and build them relationships through giving an excellent service and putting businesses together has been the key to those relationships being as strong as they are today. So are you a connector? Are you a conduit? Are you a guy who just goes, you should know you and you should talk to you and you people should be working together? Is that what you do as well? Because that can only benefit, I guess, the end game of LV as well, can't it?
Yeah, I suppose it's about analysing my strengths and my weaknesses. My weaknesses, ask anyone, will be in my administration. Right. I'm not the man you want sat behind a desk all day churning out emails. I'm the guy you want in front of people, speaking to people, keeping all the plates spinning and sitting there and thinking, do you know what? So-and-so at so-and-so business would be brilliant here because he's got the right character. He would fit this business. His business would align itself well with them. And actually, I've worked with him and I've got good value from it. And that's always been, like I said earlier, there's no good someone ringing me and saying, hi, Matt, I've seen your profile on LinkedIn. Would you do me an introduction to Bob at ABC Engineering?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but no, I don't know you.
Yeah.
I don't know how good your business is. And I've never done it. And what I have done is I've put people together at a different level and said, look, just have a conversation. This isn't me trying to score any points. And you'll find, Nick, and I'm sure you've done it over your career, you do someone a good turn like that, and 9 times out of 10 it'll come back to you tenfold, and they'll go, oh, there's no questions asked, Matt's the person to speak to.
Yeah.
LV Shipping should be doing that, speak to Matt. And that's how, for me, and this isn't a sort of roll out the red carpet for everyone and everyone does the same thing. It's worked for me, and this has been 20 years of my life, give or take, that I've done some role in business development, account management, sales, you name it. So I like to think I've done okay. I'm not one for blowing my own trumpet. You know, I'm probably a bit of Marmite for some people. I don't mind that either. You know, it's no skin off my nose if someone says, nah, you wouldn't help me. Well, unfortunately, you can't help everyone, can you? I'm a big realist.
A, you can't help everyone, and B, you probably don't want to help people that you don't know well enough, because, you know, again, going back to what you said, it comes back tenfold if you're helpful. It might come back tenfold if you introduce someone who's an absolute idiot or a moron. So you've got to be careful that the request is at the right time. I think what I like about the approach you've got is clearly, you know, you're looking at, it seems to me, the overall impact in the general economy as well. It's not just about LV, you know, shipping and transport. There's an advantage, there's a pride in the Northeast economy there as well. And if you can help, you know, put people together, that probably goes back to your chamber days, does it? Where you were building supply chains with people and making sure people were talking to the right people with the right skill set. Does that, have you got an interest in the economy in general, wider than just LV?
10 years ago, no. I thought it was probably the most boring thing ever. And as you grow up and start to act your age and not your shoe size, you realise that being able to hold a conversation about other things than why you're going into a meeting, about the cold, hard face of it, will stand you in good stead. And I was lucky enough to work with James Ramsbotham at the Chamber for 5 years. And I wouldn't say he took me under his wing per se, but I was certainly there, and I had him, you know, I could go and speak to him, I could sit in his office, ask him questions, and he would teach me quite a lot. It opened my eyes up to, you know, they don't just want to hear about the Chamber of Commerce and how good we are, Matt. They want to hear about what's happened in their local area and why the swim baths is closed again. So I got involved with lots of local area committees, so South Tyneside and Gateshead and Stockton, Middlesbrough, just so I could understand what was going on from not a political point of view, because I'm not very political. I'm not politically driven or politically focused. I like who I like, and if they're red, white, blue, or green, then so be it. I'm not really bothered. And just understanding their objectives and understanding the objectives of the area helps you work with the local business. We've got another business called LV Wallenbeck, which I work in probably 50% of my time, owned by LV Group, and it's what you might look at and think it's an old metal bashing company. We make timber and cardboard boxes and cases for around about 200 exporters in the region.
Right.
And again, LV have gone, hang on a minute, Matt, you know all these people. We have a service that they could be provided with. Yeah. Can you go in and speak to them? And I never go in and speak about boxes.
Yeah.
Have a conversation. Can you put the kettle on? Can I take some Ferrero Rocher in back in the day? And then we open the box and say, look, what can we help you with? What can we support with? And, you know, we're not begging for your business, but we can support you.
Excellent. You're obviously clearly a strong networker, and you've built powerful networks in well now and in the past. Is there any advice you give someone who's looking to, you know, potentially build their network and get better at it? You know, what is there a golden thread that you've found that works for you?
I'm naturally a people person. There's absolutely no problem me walking in a room full of 200 or 2,000 people and going around and individually speaking to people, asking how the day's been, what they do, and seeing if there's something I can help them with. So I think for me, it's easy for me to say, I'll just go and speak to them, but actually understand who you want to speak to and why. So I don't only speak to manufacturers and engineers that are making something. I spend a lot of time with, who are now some good friends, lawyers, accountants, insurance people, because they know way before it comes out in the newspaper what's going to happen. Yeah. They're doing the insurance for the building that they might be moving into in 6 months' time. They're preparing the lead. I'm not saying that to tell me all this information.
No, but it's finger on the pulse, isn't it? It's about selectively choosing the people who can add value, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, and if you constantly see things in the paper or in the local magazines or wherever it might be, when you're reading that, you're already 6 months too late.
Yeah.
That happened ages ago, and if you want to be involved with them at the right stage to help influence your business, and we do, because we need to help them move to the premises or set up a new office or transport the goods around the world. If this story's already broke, we're sixth in line. You know,
I was going to say, so somebody else has signed that contract for 3 years well before you've even been aware of it. So yeah, I get that. Okay, And I liked what you said there, by the way, at the start. You probably didn't even think you'd said it, because it's quite natural. When you meet somebody in a room, 200 or 2,000 people, you ask them how their day's going. So it's always about them first, isn't it? That's just a natural instinct. So I really like that. Really like that. Excellent. Okay. I'm just going to get rid of this email. It just popped up for some reason. I don't know why it's done that on the screen. So let's talk economy. I know you're not a political animal, and I know, that you're not plugged in particularly to say, you're the economic advisor to the region for, the Tees Valley or the Northeast, but you work in shipping and you work in transport and you work in logistics. So January into February must have been quite challenging with Brexit. Okay, you mentioned that earlier. What's the reality of the on-the-ground experience? You see stuff in the news, don't you? You see lorries queuing up at Dover. You see sensationalizing stuff, people not leaving the ports in Singapore, all sorts of stuff. What's the reality on the ground then? What's your view, Matthew, of how Brexit's affected your moving stuff around?
Very, very difficult. Like I said earlier, probably the biggest challenge we've had as a business in 100 years. I could literally, we'd have to do another podcast, Nick, but the reality is that the government have made it difficult for, let's call them, hauliers to want to come to the UK. So you've got all these European drivers going, I'm not going to the UK. You could shut your borders at any time. I'm not getting stuck there. So there's a simple
is it borders or is it paperwork? Is it the fact of being stuck?
With COVID, it's borders. So we've just today we've had this new outbreak in, was it Milton Keynes or Surrey somewhere, where they've said, look, we're now gonna we're gonna sort of try and test a lot of people in such a short space of time in this area. Now, as a driver, and we had this before Christmas with the delays, so that's a COVID-related issue. They don't want to come here because the government might turn on tomorrow and say, right, borders are shut. If you're then here, you can't get back to see your family. Yeah. The other side of it is Brexit, and Brexit's a whole different animal. It just so happens that they're both happening at the same time and having this adverse effect on the industry. As a simple example, again, because I don't want to get into technical terms, but if you were shipping something from Middlesbrough to China, I won't say this time last year, but early January last year, a 40-foot container might cost you between £3,500 and £4,500. Yeah. Again, I'm talking hypothetically here. That would now cost you around about £12,000 to £15,000. Wow. So that's a genuine reality. So people are questioning themselves: is it urgent? Do I need it? Have I got a market for it? Can I put a price increase without being to the detriment of my customers? So if I'm importing PPE and I'm selling a high-vis jacket for £12.99, I now have to pay an extra almost £8,000 in freight. Can I now sell that jacket at £45 without my customer going, come on, you're just making a mark? And they're not. Yeah. They're genuinely not making. This is the reality of the world. We've got huge issues in Europe with transit documentation, so crossing borders of other countries that are saying, what's the final destination? Who's liable for the VAT? Again, I'm laughing, but we've genuinely had people in our office in tears. This is hugely challenging just to control your own customers, then the new customers that want to come to you, plus the customers that are knocking your door down, to potentially have to turn them away at such a point when you've had such a trying year last year. Is well, you don't want to do it, do you? But unfortunately, we are getting to the point where the reality says that there is only so much you can do. Phone calls at, I think, 12 minutes past midnight on the 1st of January. Wow. With issues. That's not an exaggeration, and it's been constant. That the people that look after our customs declaration team, they're getting flowers regularly sent from the directors, put it that way. This is huge, and it's not just us. Every other freight company, haulage company you speak to in the Northeast, who I know the vast majority of them are having the same challenges. And what happens is, Nick, unfortunately, for a period of time, it will reflect bad on us from the customer, because they're understanding
on you as an industry, or us as a country, or both.
Well, I think transport as a particular sector at the moment is probably getting an unfair time. I think some people do understand it and realise that we don't own the ship or the aircraft. Yeah. I'll give you one very quick example, which is Northeast related. I was bringing a 6-ton television for a client into Teesside for a big project, and that was due to be with us on the 14th of December last year. It only got here on the 14th of January. Now, bear in mind, that's well before Brexit and the deal. So they're just some of the real, and that ship was coming into Southampton. There was about a 6-day delay in Southampton getting goods off the boat and cleared. So they decided to go to Normandy in France. Well, it's not good to me, Normandy in France. I've got a client waiting in Newcastle that wants that television.
Yeah.
So they're the real challenges. Then there's extra charges because we've now got to go to Normandy. We've got to pick it up. We've got to bring it over. We can't do it for free. We've got to try and do it on a margin that's sensible, but we've got to explain this to the customer. And this is probably every couple of hours, this sort of thing is happening right now.
So do people think, without knowing, that they're assuming that there's a bit of profiteering going on, and in reality, you're just trying to get through the day?
I would, Nick. If it was me sat on the side, I can't blame them. This is human nature, isn't it? You've just got to try and explain the best you can. And I hope that my clients and the people I speak to trust me enough that I'm not doing this because I'm getting paid a hell of a lot of money. I'm doing this because I want to help you get your products. I understand your business, and I want to make you successful, because if you're successful and you ship more, we move more, we get paid. So it's a circular economy for us. Yeah.
Is there anything people, I mean, the media's reporting, it does worry me about everything, scaremongering and all that kind of thing. It's done that throughout COVID, Brexit seemed to slip back under the radar, didn't it? Because COVID was such a, big story. And then we got like this massive rush towards the sort of deadline date. Is there anything that someone as a business could be doing right now to take that pain away of shipping and moving goods? Because, it's not going anywhere soon, is it?
It will ease up, and I think we, as a society, we get used to the things that we're told to change to. We get used to wearing face masks where we have to. We get used to it. Becomes a habit. The amount of times you've stepped out your car and got halfway into the door to Tesco and thought, "Oh, my mask."
Yeah.
But we get used to things, don't we? And it's certainly the case with this. So it is a lot of paperwork, Nick. So it's not like, and unfortunately, that paperwork does cost a little bit of money, but we're talking £20 to £50 rather than thousands and thousands of pounds. And I think they fully understand that this isn't us. It's something that's required from them by customs. But in terms of the scaremongering, no, I mean, I've actually witnessed worse things than I've seen in the papers and the news.
All right.
So genuinely, there are, them stories are not blown out of the water. Okay. And they're probably the tip of the iceberg. And I'm probably blinking a little because this is us 24/7.
Well, you're in it, aren't you? You're living and breathing it.
That's all you're seeing. So yeah, it is tough. But yeah, as I said earlier, I think Chinese New Year, we'll see a breaking point. And I think by mid to end of the year, we'll get used to this. So in terms of answering your question, sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
That's all right.
Is there something that businesses could do? Yes. Speak to us as soon as they know. As soon as they think they might be needing to ship something, as soon as they think something might be changing, pick up the phone. Don't just speak to us. I'm here representing my business, but there are many forwarders. In fact, I think we've got more forwarders per square mile in the Northeast than there are in London. So it gives you an idea of the competitiveness in our sector. So yeah, pick up the phone to me, pick up the phone to anyone, and speak to your forwarder. You've got to be in touch with them, and don't think I should be all right, because it's not. No. It's genuinely not, and it's not me trying to make money. It's
the it should be all right moment's long gone, hasn't it?
Yeah, Nick. Yeah, I worked out last week. Actually, I sent an email 39 months ago to our customs team saying, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We don't know an awful lot at the moment, but we definitely know this with the customs declarations. We need to train our staff. We need a team of 10. We need to contact our customers and explain this, even though they won't really fully. If I can just go back another step. So I'm going to pick on one business in particular. There's a great friend of mine, a guy called Keith Miller at Echo Finishing in Middlesbrough. He transports goods all over the world, but particularly in the Middle East and the Far East, okay? For him, exporting isn't a massive challenge, right? Because he's done it with countries that aren't Europe for a long, long time. And them countries are particularly difficult to export to. You need certain things like letters of credit. You need Arab documents signed by the embassy in London. So he appreciates the timescales involved. So if he had to export to Europe, which I'm sure he will at some point, it wouldn't be a massive challenge. That said, he is a one-man band effectively. So he's got a staff of about 20, but he's the salesman, he's the director, he's the finance guy. He does an awful lot. His daughter helps in his business. So for him to give his daughter the responsibility to just start shipping to Europe would be a massive issue, although she is very well versed in case she's listening. It's genuinely not a job you can just give to someone who doesn't know or hasn't done it before. It does require training. So yeah, speak to us, ask us questions. And I've always said we use far too much jargon in our industry, Incoterms, commodity code, and people go, what? I go, just let's do it. And that's what I've always done. The Incoterm is the trade in which you're doing with your customer, where the insurance risk passes from them to you or you to them.
Right.
An input, a commodity code is just a birth certificate for your product.
Right.
It tells us what it is. So I explain it that way rather than, oh yeah, I need your commodity code. They'll go, who?
Yeah.
And this
And
stuff,
all you're doing then with jargon is making it more difficult. So some people then bury their head in the sand and don't do what they're supposed to do with it, I guess.
Then that bit of paper, Nick, goes on a file because they don't want to deal with it. And then by the time they re-pick it up, it's too late.
Yeah.
So I would say, look, don't complicate things, make it easy for them, because it is a complex industry.
You mentioned the Chinese New Year. But I didn't push you on that. I'd be interested. Why is that? Because you think they're going to be back open for normal business from there, and then that'll be the sort of wave that we ride back on. Is that what the Chinese New Year is about? Is it end of February Chinese New Year?
Mid-Feb, I think. Yeah, I think just after Valentine's. I want to say the 18th, but I could be wrong. And for me, Nick, do you never feel better when you've slept on something? Always. I always do. So if someone gives me a headache, or I've got an issue I've got to deal with, or there's a problem, I look, okay, and if it allows me to, I'll say, just give me till tomorrow, I'll have a little think about it. And you feel so much better because you haven't rushed into it. And I think this will happen with the Chinese, and they'll have their break, they'll come back, and people will forget how challenging some things were and how challenging things are. And I think we'll just see a steady slow of prices reducing for a start. Someone at LV is going to go mad at you, by the way, because I'm telling them the prices are coming down, and if they don't, it'll be my fault. But joking aside, I think again, naturally as humans, we generally, after a break, we try and ease ourselves back into things, and that should happen. I won't get into the politics of the Chinese, but they've controlled the markets very well for a very long period of time, and they're a country that has seen their GDP grow rapidly as a result of certain activities that have happened in the globe, not just in their country. So these are smart people. These are very well educated people. They know what they're doing, and they're hands up. We're copiers. We're not innovators. We copy. So it's an interesting time. So the next 6 months will really be the make or break as to whether we're going to see prices go back to normal. I don't think so, but they'll certainly reduce to somewhere where is, let's call it, palatable for us and doable.
Manageable, I would think, is probably the phrase. I think I should say here then, all views expressed by Matthew Ord are those of Matthew Ord and not necessarily LV.
Yeah, I think I've had to change my Twitter a few times to say that as well. So
Twitter's dangerous. I'm on LinkedIn for business and I'm on Twitter for football. And somebody said to me a few years ago, I was doing a sales training course, and he said to me at the break, he said, "You're an angry Borough fan, aren't you?" You know, when we had Tony Pulis, he was like, "Yeah, you're not kidding." He said, "You're an angry Borough fan, aren't you?" I said, "How do you know I'm an angry Borough?" He said, "I follow you on Twitter." I said, "Oh, don't follow me on Twitter. Twitter's not. It's about football, whatever." So you got to be careful. People will find you.
Yeah, I've had the odd running on Twitter. I don't know. It's testing times, isn't it? At the moment, with all the challenges we've all got going up, and everyone seems to be an expert on everything. You're not allowed to say anything without saying, but and without someone trying to turn it. I generally don't bother now.
There's a bloke in a pub who's an expert in something. If you're allowed in the pub, there's always John in the corner was an expert at so and so. He's never been an expert. He's got an opinion on it. So Twitter just gives him that rule, doesn't it? So
exactly, yeah.
So light at the end of the tunnel, you reckon, or is it still a long tunnel and we're probably going to get through 2021 before we see 2022 being? I'm asking from a selfish point of view. My son is massively into global travel, and he's done Australian Gold Coast. He's done 9 or 10 countries in Southeast Asia. He's got his funds set aside where he would quite like at some stage to go to New Zealand and South America. Is he going to get to New Zealand and South America in 2021? What's your view? You're a global transport shipping. Can you stick him in a container for us?
Just tell him, yeah. I don't know, Nick. I seen yesterday, I think, was it Sydney or Melbourne, there was one case of COVID and they shut the whole place down. I sometimes think tougher measures would be good, but having said that, now they're not really reveling in any glory now, are they? It's not like, oh, well, you did that and we did that and we're much better off. They were for a period of time, but it hasn't been sustained. Travel-wise, I think, well, from a personal point of view, again, I've had 2 really big golfing holidays with the lads cancelled to Portugal in the last couple of years. So I'm hoping, although it has been cancelled, I'm hoping for end of this year for something. And we're also due to go back to Disney as a family. So yeah, I mean, we'd all love it, wouldn't we? We'd all spend our hard saved cash if there's any left. And it's a tough one. I think every country is going to be different. These new outbreaks are a bit of a concern for individual countries. I think borders will close a little bit easier than we've ever seen before.
New strains are the worry as well, aren't they? You get one under control, a new strain, they're not sure how to react to it. So let's take it into a business context for the last question then, I guess, in terms of what 2021 holds for a company ambassador at LV Shipping and Transport. Obviously, you are in Teesside a lot. You're a Teesside lad and proud of it, but your job involves, you've got 8 offices in the UK, you've got, Holland to look after, you've got, global stuff. Is there a thought of a big exhibition that keeps you going? Because it's a big exhibition kind of business, isn't it? Where you go out and see people. What are the ones that were traditionally on your radar that you've missed that you'd like to get back to, Matthew?
Oh, particularly ones in the in Dubai. They're the best ones. There's the European shows that are pretty good in Germany. Yeah, I mean, look, it is nice. Life's changed for me over the last couple of years. You can probably see a couple of small paintings there. So. Yeah. I've been really, really, really blessed and very fortunate. I've got a great family, we've got a great partner, an amazing daughter, a great job, and I feel very fortunate. And when I speak to people that that we mentioned off air, I'm always the guy that's always positive. So if I'm ever quiet for a day, something's up. So I don't know, Nick. I think there's not a lot that I'm not driven by. Getting up each day, making sure our business moves forward, making sure I do something positive for the business. That's what drives me. Yes, the rest is nice. I think by the end of this year, we will see some. I just had an email today from the EIC, which is the Energy Industry Council. They've got a show, I can't remember where it was now. I want to say Japan, that looks like it's going to go ahead. One of their big oil and gas shows. There's a few with the guys at NOF and Energy Coast and others that are trying to plan things. The EIC is the only one that I've seen that have said this is going to happen. Do you want to book your space? And that's for November.
Right. Well, they've got the Olympics to get through yet in Japan as well. And
I was just going to say, yeah. So there's a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles. I love a challenge, so I'm the opposite of some people. When it gets hard and everyone else is down, my job is to rally around and get the troops and say, come on, we can get through this, and speak to him and get in touch with them, and they can help. And the world isn't ending. And I'm always fairly balanced on the views I give from LV Shipping. We were lucky that as a sector, we were to remain operational through the whole of the first and second and third. Are we at the fourth one? I'm not sure. Lockdown. And I'm sure mid-March, as people started to get sent home, as businesses started to close, as we were told of the news, if you'd have said to our chief financial operating officer that we'd be 10% down across the board in a year, he'd have took your hand off.
Yeah.
And we're probably 10% down because we've missed a little bit of that working together in the office. Them things that you hear and you go, did you just speak to so-and-so, so-and-so there? Oh, I need to speak to him. So I think as a business, and I'm very, very cautious when I say this, we've done okay, Nick. My partner has a florist that hasn't done okay. Her father has a large engineering business that's done brilliant. Yeah. However, I'm aware that people have passed away, people have lost the jobs, people have lost businesses. So I don't really enjoy anybody, particularly on social media, going, yeah, we've had a brilliant time through COVID. I sit there and I think, come on, please, just tailor what you're saying to the audience and understand that it has been trying for some people, whilst it might not have been a bigger test for you. So I'm very positive and I can't change that. So even when I'm saying these things, I'm still ready for the next thing, and the challenges are real, but I love a challenge.
I think there's a bit of humility needed, isn't there? I don't get me wrong, I quite like the idea of success stories. I think the news is full of the opposite of that, but you've got to have a bit of humility about it as well. Like you say, there's been a lot of tragedy around this, hasn't there? Yeah. So, and unfortunately a bit more to come. So listen, I'm just going to share the screen with those who watch on YouTube. So it's got your contact details on here, Matthew.
Oh, great.
Those who are regulars will know that the podcast hosted on the IMPACTUS Group website. It also links out to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, the usual stuff. And the YouTube version will be on our YouTube channel when this goes out. All the show notes will have your contact details in anywhere, but they're on there as well, Matthew, in terms of your phone number, your email, and the website, etc., etc. All that remains for me to say is, listen, that's been an absolute pleasure. I think in terms of exploring the job role, that was just a little bit of tongue in cheek, in terms of tell me what makes you a blooming ambassador, hark at you from Middlesbrough with that job title. But I've enjoyed exploring that, but I've also enjoyed your sort of insights and views on, where things might be for the wider business economy. So Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you.
Cheers.